A scouting report, the Senior Bowl. Who looked good there? That is the topic on today's show. A reminder, though, check out this podcast. Appreciate you joining us. This is free, and it will remain free. Appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know a lot of you watch. Don't hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. You won't be tracked for anything. We just want to make sure that we can grow and keep this podcast going for you. So the Senior Bowl takes place, 77th Senior Bowl. Gosh, so many of these back since 1974 I've been to. I want to talk to you a little bit beforehand about what the Senior Bowl means and what it doesn't mean. In this day and age of clickbait, in this day and age of, oh boy, this guy is rising up boards and he's falling down. It doesn't exist. It's never exist. That's not how the process works. You often notice that comments made by people who've never run a draft before. Draft boards are not set. They're not set until your final meetings in April before the draft. The process is a long process. And I'll just start it. It starts before this, but let's just take the football season where you're scouting players, area scouts are looking at players, and then you have we'll call regional scouts that look at maybe the top guys in the region. And then you have maybe a national scout. You have a college scouting director that all looks at players during the course of the season. If you go into, for example, a school on October 15th, you're looking at tape on campus and practices on campus from up until that point. You can't look at a game in November that hadn't been played yet, of course, common sense. So you can't be everywhere at the same time. So you have to work through, it's a process. And by the time the season is over, usually around like Thanksgiving time, you've hopefully made all your stops. That's when you need to go back as an area scout and as a regional scout to look at those players on later tape. Because what you saw maybe in September and early October games are not what you see late October and November. You need to do more work on it. Once the season is over, and I get this all the time, well, how could the grade change on a player after the season's over? Nothing's changed. A lot's changed because you haven't looked at all the film yet. For everybody, the college director, maybe the general manager if he's a football guy, the position coaches in the NFL, coordinators, even the head coach if he's really involved. He'll look at less film than others, but we'll look at some. They can't look at those until after the season is over. And the process for an assistant coach, coaching staff in general, everybody in the coaching staff is once the season is over, you then evaluate your team and write a report on every player on your team at your position group, coordinator, the entire defense, on our offense. Then the head coach will give an overview of what he thinks. That needs to be done first. Then the pro personnel staff who studied NFL tape all year long will certainly provide input into who's out there in free agency. Then the second step for the coaches will be to look at the players, other players in the league, and compare them to who they have to kind of make some determinations. I'd rather this guy versus that guy. This fits what we do, it doesn't, so on and so forth. Well, obviously, the longer you play, including guys that play in the Super Bowl, which is your goal, everybody's goal, you have less time to do that as a coaching staff. That's why your personnel staff has to carry the weight a little bit longer. But that takes time, and then you get into the draft process. Senior Bowl tape. Obviously, coaches that are participating in Super Bowl were not at the Senior Bowl practice. Everything is taped, so that's fine. The scouts for those teams, though, were at the Senior Bowl to get any updated information and evaluations put into the system. The bottom line is it takes a long time, all the way through January, all the way through February, even all the way through March to evaluate everything. All the tape, maybe from 2 to 3 seasons of tape looking back at the previous year and maybe the previous year prior to that. You look at a lot of things, particularly if a guy was injured. You look at a lot of details. You gather a lot of information, injuries, character. You certainly do a lot of homework at the All-Star games. Certainly a lot of work is done at the combine to get a general feel for the overall athleticism when they're not in pads to compare it with what they do in pads. And then, of course, to evaluate some of the character and get a feel for them in the person-to-person visits. And most importantly at the combine is what? The medical physicals. All of that has to be pulled in. And then when you get into your final meetings, everybody who's now evaluated them, then they begin to stack their board. So you can't move up or down a board that haven't even been set yet. Do NFL teams have a board with names on it right now? Yeah, they're not in any order. Or they might be put into some order by an intern, based upon the area scout's grade and maybe the cross-checker's grade. But you have to put a final team grade on the player. And that will not often correspond to what you initially have. And it depends on the organization. In some organizations where the coaches have more say-so, in some organizations the scouts have say-so. When I was for example, in Houston and Tennessee, we ran the draft. I mean, the coaches didn't have much involvement in it. We had an experienced staff, we had a small staff, and we set up the draft board, and we really ran the draft. Our general manager just asked questions, kind of made sure that, thought-provoking, and if really disagreed from a coaching and a scouting standpoint, we really hashed it out by looking at film together and coming to that determination. But in the end, everybody puts a team grade. That's when the board is set. So I would tell you, if you want to buy into the Harry High School media, well, this guy's shooting up draft boards, moving down, you're fooling yourself. That doesn't exist. With that said, it does not mean that you can't do things to help yourself. Of course you can in these All-Star Bowl games, combine. So let's look at who kind of stood out. I thought Garrett Nussmeier did a really good job. He had a good week. Why is that when he didn't have a good season? He's healing more from an injury that, quite frankly, that was misdiagnosed by LSU. He had a good week of practice. Very comfortable. It's not a practice or a week or a game in which you grade a player down, particularly at the quarterback position, where you're dealing with receivers you're not comfortable with. You don't have as much time working with them. But getting better each day is important. He did that. Certainly played well in the game, but more important than the play in the game is the practices, and he did a very good job all week. The tight ends were very poor in this game, so you had drops in the game, but that's not what we look at. You don't look at the result. You grade the process. He's getting healthier. He looked good. Diego Pavia is someone that is a good football player. I don't think he's a quarterback at the next level, other than a change of pace guy you'd like to have on your team, maybe do some situational stuff running with. I think he has a role as a backup. I don't think he was, quite frankly, very impressive. Luke Altmaier wasn't able to get a whole lot going in the game. Thought he did a pretty good week. I thought Taylon Green of Arkansas, he flashes with athletic ability, but you see that other than design runs and improvisational plays, he's just not a really good passer at this point, needs a lot of development. I did like the running backs on the American team in particular. Kalen Black from Indiana, really good. I thought he was up and down a little bit in practice due to the blocking schemes, but boy, he ran well in the game. He's a between the tackles, hard runner, caught 2 passes. It's really good. Jaden Ott of Oklahoma caught the ball well out of the backfield. 5'10", 202 pounds. Really good week. Like this guy a lot. Virginia's Jamari Taylor and Arkansas's Mike Washington also did a really good job. Very productive. I thought offensive line play. I thought Florida center's Jake Slaughter, Arizona State's tackle Max Iniaker played well. I thought Georgia Tech's Kalen Rutledge on the national team was really good as well. those are some guys that running back Seth McGowan really stood out and did a nice job. On the defensive side, Missouri's edge rusher Zion Young had a very productive week. I think he's going to be a high pick and a good player. Covered a fumble, created a lot of pressures in the game. Oregon's linebacker Bryce Bodeker was all over the place for the Nationals defense. Really a tackling machine, very athletic, got coverage ability, liked him a lot. The Quintavious Hutchins kid, the edge rusher from Boston College, really good player. Thought he did a good job setting the edge in the run game, getting upfield as a rusher. Western Michigan's Nadami Tucker also stood out. I really put a lot of more emphasis on how some of these small college guys do in the Senior Bowl because they are playing against the toppest level college competition here, whereas the high level big time program guys play against big time programs all year long. Now, sometimes you get like Max Goose play against Big Ten and what have you, but you're competing against the best and the best. So a guy like Tucker really stood out in this regard. I think Michigan's Rayshawn Benny did a really good job. I thought Adam Randall from Clemson also did a really good job. Washington's corner Ephesians Prysock was a standout in coverage. I thought he did a good job playing the ball. Those are some guys that stood out. We're going to have a deeper breakdown over at LandryFootball.com, but keep in mind, having a breakout doesn't mean these guys are suddenly moving up to this position and that position. It's all a part of a process. It's all a part of a puzzle. Enjoy. We are going to take you through the draft process and explain it to you and what it really means and who's truly good. And when, again, you hear these people on TV, radio, what have you, say things like, this guy's moving up or down, all that is code for is they really don't know what they're talking about. They're gathering information. So the last thing that people tell them is what they know. Moving down. New mock draft. Let's do this. The teams are a more thorough and a slower process that will take you to the ultimate setting up the board. The only board that matters is the final board, the board that you truly set up when you've done all the work. All the work hadn't been done. Nobody's sitting there saying, okay, look, I went to the workout, let's move him down. No, that doesn't exist. Doesn't exist anywhere in the league. It only exists in the world of fantasy football evaluations in the media. Appreciate you joining us. Hit that subscribe button. Help keep it free. Talk to you again next time, everybody.